Hello, Tab Nation. It's your boy. Today we're doing Autoit, specifically Intro to GUIs. Yeah. So let's take a look here. So first we need to do the hashtag pound symbol, depending on what generation you're from, call it what you will, include, and this right here, which is GUI, constantEX.eu3, constant X. So that's going to help us create the GUIs. When you download Autoit, this should automatically just be included in part of the download, so you should be fine. Don't need to download another library separately. But yeah, we're going to show you. So first we need to create our GUI. This is where we're going to name it. So in parentheses here, and then quotations for the name, you just put whatever. We're just sticking with hello world. And then, you know, what size do we want it to be? What is the height and the width going to be? So change this how you need, and that's how that works. Next, let's just create a label. So a label is just essentially text. So it's GUI CTRL, control, create label. Same idea, basically, in quotations here, and then in parentheses, you know, what do we want the text to be? If you get rid of these quotations, and you can actually store a variable here if you would like to. So you could do something, so let's copy this. Let's create a variable real quick. We'll call it hello equals our text. Make sure you put that in quotations or it won't know it's a string. And then here we'll just call our variable hello. And then same thing here, you know, size of how you want it to look. That's probably by far the hardest part, but I'm going to show you a trick later on in the video on how to do something a little easier, because this is by far the worst part of creating GUIs is, you know, the X, Y coordinates, the height, the width, all that is such a pain in the butt. But yeah, we'll show you a much simpler trick. So next we can also create a button. So same idea here, GUI, control CTRL, create button. What do you want to call it? We'll call it OK. And then we're doing X, Y coordinates along with the width of it in here. So you don't always have to put them. It will adjust the size of the text if you were to delete one of the height or the width. So as you can see, I'm only doing one. So I just want to put that out there. Here, we're creating a variable. The reason why is because with a button, you're going to push the button. It's going to jump down, perform an action. But here we want to actually be able to store data on what they clicked on the radio buttons. So just in case you don't know, checkboxes let you check, you know, however many or however few you want. Where a radio button, only one radio button can be pressed at a time. That way you're forced to only give one answer. You know, yes, no, or whatever. So we're going to store it as a local. By default, technically, we don't need that because they're already, by default, are variables. But we're going to store them as separate entities here just so we can say, hey, if radio button was checked, perform this action, or if radio button was checked, perform this action, depending on what you're creating there. But the second part's pretty simple. It's, you know, just your GUI create, or GUI control create radio. We're going to name it radio 1, radio 2. I mean, this can be whatever text you want, what you actually want it. You know, it could be, you know, male, female, or yes, no, whatever. And then our XY coordinates, our height, width, all that. Once again, biggest pain in the butt is performing all this action, but you can see here, like our X and Y, we have this off-centered a little bit compared to up here. Same button height and width, but that way they're next to each other, not together. Another thing too is if you want to have it like automatically checked, one of the radio buttons, you can add this where it's just GUI control set state, and then you're going to say, you know, which one are we targeting? We're creating the second one, and what do we want it to do? Well, we want the GUI underscore to be checked, so GUI underscore checked, and that's just going to automatically set that one as like the default starting when we do it. So our GUI's been created, but we can't see it. So simply all we gotta do is say show. So GUI set state at SW underscore show. This is kind of the built-in information here that sets the state of the GUI, which is simply show versus invisible. And we just have a sleep in there. That doesn't really need to be there. But yeah, probably by far the biggest mistake when creating GUIs is just forgetting that I have to put this include in. The reason why is because I usually, as you know, with my YouTube channel, if you've been around, I do auto hotkeys. And by default, you don't need to include anything. GUIs just work. Where here you kind of have to let it know, like, hey, I'm creating a GUI. You know, this might seem kind of weird and annoying, but it can be good in the long run. Because obviously this include, it's a Autoit file that's probably very, very big. And if I'm not going to create in my GUI, in my code, why would I want to include the code that supports it? So it's good in the long run because it creates just smaller scripts versus like when you're using auto hotkeys, it's going to put all that code in there that regardless if you need it or not. So that's nice, but it is easy to forget because I could run this and it'd be like, don't know what any of these commands mean. And I'm like, what? I mean, the code's right. And it's like, oh, because it doesn't understand because I didn't include the file. That's my biggest thing that I always make a mistake with this stuff. So yeah. But yeah, we go ahead and we'll run it. Obviously, it slept for a little bit too short, so let's change that to 10,000 milliseconds or 10 seconds. There we go. So as you see, radio button number 2 is already checked. There's the OK button. There's the word U because it's being hidden. I'm glad that happened, actually. The reason why you can't see this whole thing right here is because that was created first. And it's basically creating like a layer over top of that text with the new radio button. And like I said, that's like the worst thing is trying to design your GUI to line up and look clean and, you know, centered and whatnot. And that's where this program comes into place. And it actually surprisingly seems to be pretty new. If you guys know of any other ones out there that you like or other ways of doing this, let me know in the comments below. This is just kind of the first one I stumbled upon that I really liked. I found like 1 or 2 other ones that were kind of rough around the edges, kind of probably a side project that nobody really continues anymore. But as far as this says, it's posted on the Autoit script website 2022, so filming this video, it's not that old. It's about 2 years old. And I mean, you can see right here, it's really cool. I've done auto hotkeys where I've used programs like this, and they're so easy because it takes just the constant guessing of where to center that button, change the X and Y coordinates. It's so helpful. It's just a faster way. What's he call it? It's called GuiBuilderPlus. By Kirky Boy. So shout out to him. No idea who he is. This is the first time I've seen his name, but apparently he makes some pretty cool stuff. So yeah. So download that. I'll link this in the description below, obviously. You just go down here, download the zip, unzip it, and you'll be left with this folder right here. So he got this source code. I doubt any of you guys really care to look at that. So you just go to the compiled, and right here he has his little logo, version 1.3 at the time of filming this. Seems like he's, you know, updating it and whatnot. So unfortunately, I can't really zoom in right here, right now with this, but this is your GUI, this is your canvas, this is your toolbox right here, and basically you can size this. That is how big your GUI is actually going to appear. So that's nice. It makes it easy to sit there and be like, that's what it's going to look like. And then you got your options here. You can select, you know, different, styles. So you wanted a border, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then here's your property. As you can see, if I change the size of it a little bit, it's automatically adjusting the height there. So that's great. Don't know what I just created there. But yeah, we can go to cursor, basically just lets me edit stuff, move stuff around. Tabs can create like pages. Group is one I always like using in auto hotkeys. So it's great to have it in Autoit. Button, probably the most common one you're going to be using. So you can click on button. Something I want to show you is, let's say I'm putting the button here, as you create this, it's creating the code. So it is going to the code's going to be written in the order of what you create. So if I create this at the bottom, create stuff up here, that button is going to show as the first thing being created, which can be a little bit harder to look at when you're trying to read your code. But there's the button. You can right click on it to, you know, perform basic stuff. You can align it, which is nice. You can lock it, stuff like that. Let's see, what else we got? We can do like a checkbox. So you just drag that out. Just by default, it's going to be like that. So nothing special. You can click on it, and then you got a little bit more stuff over here. You can add a background to it, change the font, stuff like that. You can name it hello, stuff like that. Oh, I guess the text is what I was trying to change. There we go. So there you go. You got a radio button, edit, like an edit box, a smaller or input box, which is basically just a smaller edit box. Label essentially is just text. So you can write text. Text goes here, you know, stuff like that. Scroll, other stuff, calendars, you know, very basic stuff. Pictures, you can create an image, which is great because you can create clickable images. So instead of using a very generic looking button, you could create like a checkbox, and when you click on the picture, you can actually have it perform an action. But that's a later video for more complicated GUI stuff. You got a slider, and I'm not going to go through all these, but here's what you got. This is my GUI. Looks beautiful. Absolutely stunning. Best GUI I've ever made in Autoit. You can save it. If you save it here, it's going to save it as this tools AGD, I guess is what it is, file extension. That's if you want to edit it later and stuff. But if we want the code now, we're going to go ahead and go to export to AU3. But before I do that, there is also import from AU. So if you find somebody else's script on the internet that has a GUI and you want to slightly edit it and move some stuff around, you would use the import. It would find the GUI code and display it here. Obviously, you're going to run into some issues if there's multiple GUIs in it, but yeah. So export, I'm fine. That we'll call it that. It's automatically going to default to a Autoit extension. And I can go ahead and close out of this. Yeah, it's already on my desktop. There it is. And there it is. So I can double click that, run it. There's my GUI. Obviously got rid of all the measuring lines and whatnot. But yay, we made a GUI, but let's actually look at the code real quick. So here's the GUI. Great thing is it automatically includes everything that it's going to need. And go ahead and creates, you know, the variables. And the way this is done, is so clean looking. I mean, it creates like sections with information like title, description. You can obviously change all that. I mean, this spits out very clean code that's just automatically readable. But yeah, here's us creating it in this function. So this is our GUI. As you can see, we got like our button, our hello, our text goes here, and as you see, it did code it in the way that I built it, even though this button is technically the last thing in that GUI, and I personally like having that at the end, but hey, to each his own. And then down here, it just creates the function that, like, if I were to click, you know, on a button or event close, you know, what's it do? So it creates some of the stuff you basically need. And that is a very simple introduction to Autoit GUIs. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below. Do you guys want to see me dive deeper into GUIs with Autoit? Let me know in the comments specifically what route you want to take. If this video gets 30 likes, I'll definitely do a follow-up video getting a little bit more complex into the possibilities and capabilities of it. And like I said, in the description is going to be the link to that. Make sure to subscribe. Every week we're throwing out videos having to do with auto hotkeys normally, but we do branch out, just like in this video with Autoit and even sometimes Python or something. All right, everybody. See you all on the next one. Bye.